Let's talk about lookup. Another lookup function. Whoa, another lookup function. Whoa, another lookup function. It's another lookup function. Unbelievable, hey? We had the VLOOKUP, we've seen the HLOOKUP, and now we have the plain old lookup. Now this is the most rare of them all. It's the rarest of them all, and you will not see this very often. But it's a strange little formula, and it's useful for solving certain specific problems in Google Sheets, and we'll see one of those examples shortly. But let me just quickly show you a basic use case for it. It performs an approximate match. So let's say I wanted to look up the week 2 value for product 3. So let's just highlight that one to make sure we keep an eye on it. Then we've seen ways to do it with a VLOOKUP, with an HLOOKUP, with an index match, with an HLOOKUP match, etc., etc. So we're really flogging a dead horse here, but let's just see how this one does work. So we'll do lookup, and what am I searching for? I'm searching for week 2. Where am I searching? I'm searching up there, and then which results where do I want to return the result from? And this time, this is where it's perhaps a little less useful, is I'm returning the result from there, from that row. Now it gives me the 19. Now, if I had put in a 2 all the way through to a 7, which would be that whole range, then you'll see it gives me an NA error. The lookup range must be a single row or a single column. So that was the problem. So this one does work on single rows and columns. So we need to change this back to a single row there. And so if I double click, you'll see it's searching in here for week 2, performing an approximate match, and then it is returning some value from this row that I specify. So as you might be thinking right now, it's probably not very useful considering the power and flexibility of something like the index match that we've seen. So let's just go and see an actual example of where it is useful. So here's a row of data, and it's 592 rows long, but let's imagine that we're not sure, it's dynamic, so new data gets added or data gets removed, and so it's always changing, and we want to keep track of what is the last value, the last item in column A. That's the task here, and there's no easy way to do that without using the lookup formula. So let's take a look at this, how this works. Let's build this formula up again in stages, and step 1 is just what I'd like to do is know whether it has something in this column or not, because that would be a first step. If I knew whether this was empty or whether it had data in it, that would tell me whether we were up to the last item in the column or not. Let's do a -a not equal to the quotations. And then if I hit enter, all that happens is it just gives me that first one. If I do a control enter, then what it does is it fills out this whole column for me, because it's an array formula. So it now works on the array, and it performs that action for every single column, row rather. And there we go, you can see it changes to false when my column A is empty. So that's a good start, that's great. Now what I'd like to do is change these to ones where it's true and errors where it's not true, because you'll see in a moment when we use the lookup, that's one way we do it. So what I'll do is just do a quick 1 over that. So what happens is it coerces the trues and falses into 1s and 0s, and then divides them 1 over, and that gives me 1s where it's here, and it gives me division by 0 errors down here. And so now with this data here, so let me just copy this formula again so we get to keep a copy of it. So with this one here, what I can do now is actually use a lookup. So remember, it does an approximate match, which means it's going to search, and it searches single columns, or single rows. So this is a really useful example where we can use it. So we'll be able to look up, and what it's going to do is let's give it a search for 2, and it's going to find something as close as possible to the number 2. Now we haven't got anything other than 1s in our column, so it'll shoot through all of the 1s until it finds something that's not the 1, and then drop back 1 item, which will be to that last row there. And what do I want to return? I want to return the value from column A as well, because that's where my last item lives. So let's hit enter, and now it tells me it's 3722, which is that last one there. So just quickly, what's happening again? So it gives me true falses, then I do a 1 over the true falses to get them into 1s or errors. The errors down here were the falses. And then we do a lookup where we search for something bigger than the 1, so the 2 in this case, and it obviously flies all the way down the 1s because that's bigger. And then when it hits here, it says, I don't find it, so we'll drop back to that last item there, and with the lookup there, what I'm doing is returning the value in that final column. A little bit of a tricky formula, even though it's not too big, there's not too many components to it, but it's quite tricky to understand all the different steps that are happening there, and it doesn't look very intuitive. But that's an example of how we might use the lookup there to solve a specific problem in Excel. So, okay folks, that's all on lookup. Thanks for watching.